Hi there. This is another Cook With Me video. This is called a hippening but forgiving flourless chocolate cake. Hippening because it's sort of hip and it will increase your hip line if you eat too much of it. It's very rich. But it's forgiving because it's very easy to do, and you'll find out later why I say forgiving. This is a recipe that I've been making for, I can't remember how long, quite a long time, and because it's so rich, I usually only make it once or twice a year. This is a great recipe that can be done ahead of time, and these are the things you're going to need. You'll need some type of spring-form pan, or it could be done in a pan that has a removable bottom. I would not recommend a fluted edge, though, for this, because you don't want things to get caught while you're trying to take it out of the pan. So if you're going to do something with a removable bottom, I would do something with a straight edge. And in that case, I probably would just stick with your springform pan. This one is roughly, I don't know, roughly 9 inches across in diameter, maybe. So, you'll also need some fresh fruit of some sort. These are raspberries, because I've done it with raspberries, with strawberries. You could do it even without fruit if you're finding that money is a little tighter, or the fruit at the grocery store doesn't look very good. So you also need powdered sugar. You'll need whipping cream or heavy cream. You'll need some sort of fruit jam to spread on the cake. This is optional, but I really think it adds to the flavor. You'll need vanilla, so you can use vanilla extract. I also like to use this vanilla paste. The quantities are exactly the same. You need 2 sticks of butter, which is also half a pound of butter. You'll need 4 eggs. You'll need some coffee. This is just ground coffee, but you will need some coffee. So go ahead and make yourself a nice cup of really strong coffee, and you're going to save a portion of it. You can make a whole pot for everyone, or you can just make a cup for yourself. If you're not a coffee drinker, that's okay. You could buy a cup of coffee, black, really strong, or you could use coffee that is, the instant kind. And that instant kind could be used in other recipes. You could even leave it out if you don't want the extra added expense of coffee, if you don't already have it available to you. You'll need chocolate chips of some sort. These happen to be chunks, but chocolate chips, small, big, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be melted. You'll need salt and some sugar. So those are the ingredients you'll need, and as we go along I'll tell you the quantities, the exact quantities that you'll need of each of these. As I said, this can be done in stages. You will have to do this ahead of time because it does need some chilling time in the refrigerator, a few hours worth, to thicken up and harden the cake a little bit. So I'll see you in just a minute. I am back. I wanted to point out some of the first things you need to do is to butter or grease your springform pan. The second thing would be to set the temperature on your stove to preheat it to 350 degrees. So we're going to do that. It comes up 350, I just realized that. And so while that is heating up to 350, I'll tell you a little bit about the semi-sweet morsels. I mentioned that you need chocolate chips. Do not use milk chocolate. You can use a semi-sweet, you could use a slightly bittersweet. I would stay away from the milk chocolate. I don't think it would be just completely too sweet. I just wanted to point out a 12-ounce package is not going to be enough. So you will need about roughly 2.5 cups of chocolate chips. The smaller the chocolate chip, it's still the same quantity. We're going to divide the chocolate chips up. In this case, I am going to be using 2.5 cups of chocolate chunks. This is about 2 cups. I set 1/2 cup aside to stir in later. I already made my hot coffee. You're going to need obviously a double boiler, and I just made a really quick video on what a double boiler is. I have it on very low heat. The water is going to be heating up in there. You just want it to come to a simmer. You don't want it to come to a boil. If it gets too hot, it's going to make your chocolate chips burn on the bottom. I'm back. Okay, so now I'm going to show you. It's gotten the little bowl has gotten a little hotter, and you can see it's steaming. So that's a good sign, and I don't really see too many, it's just ever so slightly has bubbles, but the steam is actually good. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting stuff in here in my double boiler. So we are going to put in 2 cups of chocolate chips. These happen to be chocolate chunks. We're going to put that directly into the bowl. This is my 1/2 cup hot coffee. It doesn't have to be hot, but I pour those 2 together, and then we're going to stir it up. Now the stirring process is going to take a while, so I'm just going to start, and then I'll see. Now it's already, I can already tell it's starting to stick a little bit, and you can see how quickly that happened. So basically you want to stir it. Usually I would do this with 2 hands by holding the bowl with 1 hand with a mitt and then stirring it this way. So I'm probably going to have to stop, but really it doesn't take too long. You just basically want to melt this and combine the coffee with the chocolate chips, and you want to get underneath so that the chocolate chips don't bind up suddenly and you're left with this unusable mess of chocolate. Not that chocolate is ever a mess and unusable, but for cooking purposes it can be. I know that there's ways that you can reconstitute something, but I don't know that. So you're going to have to Google that yourself. Okay, so this is just even less than a minute, and you can already tell that it is going to town with melting. So really it doesn't take long at all. And again, I like using the spatula, the silicone spatula, because you can scrape down the sides as you go along. And so you're going to keep doing that. And I'm going to show you what the water looks like underneath. So actually this, you see there are very few chunks in it. Like there's maybe a few left, but that was really quickly. It melted really, really quickly. So I'm going to, at this point, that's all it really took. So it doesn't take very much. At this point, I'm going to turn my heat completely off, and I'm going to remove it from the heat, and then I'll take it back to the table and show you the next few steps. Okay, I'm back, and now we're going to take this off. It's still a little, it's warm enough, and I'm going to put it on a hot plate. Now if you're going to be doing this in your on your kitchen counter, you can still use a hot plate depending on what type of counter you have. You may not need it. This is just, I want to protect my table as I'm doing this. So I'm going to be mixing everything else right directly into this bowl. That's why I like to have a slightly bigger mixing bowl over my double boiler. So to my thing, I'm going to be adding 4 eggs, and I'm going to be adding my 2 sticks of butter. Now these were frozen, so I had to microwave them just a little bit to thaw I just want them slightly softened. You don't want them straight out of the refrigerator. You can set them out on your counter and let them come to room temperature and soften a little bit, depending on how hot your house is. Obviously these are going to melt, but it's probably better to keep them softened rather than adding in melted butter. So I'm going to add this carefully in. Oh. Now, and I also wanted to say, as you know, they came in little sticks, came wrapped with paper, so obviously use that to grease your pan with. That saves on having to waste any more butter. I'm going to add my 4 eggs. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar. And I'm going to put in a pinch of salt. Now, my mother-in-law years ago gave me this cute little set. I don't know if you can see. It's cute. It's a little set, and it says pinch, dash, and smidgen. So you can see the pinch is bigger than a smidgen, but smaller than a dash. So you definitely don't need this. Okay, here's my teaspoon of vanilla going in. If you put a little bit more, that's absolutely fine. So I'm going to put that aside, move this out of the way, and then I will try to, now this is where I need maybe a second hand, but see all that lovely chocolate? I would be scraping that off into the bowl with this. Oops. So then I'm going to take my hand mixer, and I would recommend doing this with a hand mixer because it doesn't take that long. Okay, so I like to beat it a little extra time because I want it to increase in volume a little bit. I increased the speed as I went along, and then this is challenging one-handed, and I think I make more of a mess in the kitchen than if I were doing this with 2 hands, so excuse the mess. Okay, I'm back, and I am just going to stir this up, and the last thing we're going to add in here is the last 1/2 cup of your chocolate chips. This is to give it a little texture in your cake. So you'll have maybe a few little chunkier areas, and you're just going to stir that up, and then we're going to put it into the pan. And just a second. Okay, I poured it into my pan, and it's ready for the oven. While you are waiting for the chocolate cake in the oven, that would be a great time to clean up your mess, and you can actually go ahead and prep the other part. If the raspberries weren't already washed and prepped, you could do that. You can also make your whipped cream topping. So that's what we're going to do. We have a cup of whipped cream topping. Now it's really important. You notice I'm using the same bowl, so I went ahead and washed that. And I do have a KitchenAid, but I don't keep it out on my counter, so I'm really not going to be, I don't really want to be using it for this such small batch. But certainly if you have a stand mixer of some sort, a KitchenAid or some other brand, go ahead and use that for making your whipped cream. It'll be really fast that way. But I think you kids probably are not going to start out with a KitchenAid or a stand mixer because they tend to be a little bit pricier, and you probably end up with a hand mixer, which is absolutely fine to use. So one thing you'll do want to make sure is your bowl is not hot. In fact, a cold bowl when you're trying to whip cream is going to be better. And you want these to be completely dry and obviously not warm. You want this to be dry as well. So I poured 1 cup of whipping cream or heavy cream in there. I'm using 1 teaspoon of that vanilla paste, but vanilla extract is fine. I don't know about the rest of you, but the cost of vanilla extract is through the roof. So I found some good deals and I've stocked up. I'm well stocked for a while. The recipe is roughly 3 tablespoons of powdered sugar. Powdered sugar is also known as confectioner sugar, and it's also known as 10x sugar, because I believe it's been sifted 10 times to make it into a powder form. So I am going to use 3 tablespoons. Now there's a little bit extra in here. Sometimes when I make this, I don't want to make it too sweet to begin with, but in this case I'm just going to add it because actually you can see my bowl might have been a little bit warm. Some of the confectioner's sugar is sticking to the bottom. So because the cake itself is semi-sweet, or if you use bittersweet, it's going to be not super sweet, so it's nice to balance it out with something slightly sweeter. But if you want to go ahead and just use 2 tablespoons, taste test it a little bit, and add a little third as you go, that's fine. So it's basically those 3 ingredients, and then I'm just going to start out once again with my hand mixer. I'm going to put it on the lowest setting first, just to combine and stop the sound. Then you're going to increase it to higher speed because you want to push air into the cream, and that's what's going to make it fluff up. So we're looking for a whipped cream that is light and fluffy and has forming some soft peaks. So I did this for probably about a minute, and so it's like this. I think it needs just a little bit more time. It is sticking, and you can pick it up. So just maybe 30 seconds more, and it'll be good to go. Okay, I'm back. Now, it's definitely thicker. So this is good. You know, whipped cream can be different. It can be a lot softer. It can be even stiffer than this. It depends on your use for it. Because we're going to be putting this on top of the cake once it comes out of the oven, cools completely, and I'm covering it with fresh fruit. You know, I want it to be maybe a little stiffer. That's okay. So I am going to take the excess off here, and then I'm going to pop this whole bowl into the refrigerator to keep it nice and cold. I'll cover it with plastic wrap first, so I will do that and get back to you. Okay, I'm back, and it was about 5 minutes more. Now, some of it unfortunately had dripped out. The springform pan was not leak proof, and cleaning that up in the oven's not going to be fun. So I'm taking it out. I put it on a cooling rack, and you can see I just am testing. It's fine. If I push on my finger, it springs back a little bit. You could go a little bit longer. I just want to be really careful not to get the edges burnt. So we're going to let this cool in the pan for a little bit, and then when we're ready, I'll undo the springform pan and put it on a plate and put it in the refrigerator to chill. Wanted to check back in quickly. You can see already after about 5 minutes of cooling, it's still hot to the touch, but it has started to pull away from the sides, so that's good. It's deflated a little bit, and it's pulled away from the sides, so that's good. So I'm going to give it a little bit more time to cool a little bit, and then I will carefully see if we can get it out of the pan without coming apart completely. I'm back, and yeah, it's cooler now. I can touch it, and I ran a knife all the way around the edge several times. Now we're going to take this off carefully, and it should come away completely from the pan. Check it before you lift it off, and there you go. Now, one thing I probably should have put on here before I even began was I should have cut a piece of parchment paper a little bit smaller than this. So the diameter of that circle. So you can trace around it and then just cut it out with a pair of scissors. You could have greased that parchment paper as well and put it in the bottom of the pan before you poured your chocolate in. I think that might have helped getting it off the bottom. But if you don't have parchment paper, what we're going to do is we're going to get in here, and this is going to be very tricky doing with one hand, but basically I want to loosen up the bottom here. I want to go underneath, if you could see. Now for you who are more experienced cooks, you're going to definitely know how to do this. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this one-handed, so I'm going to try to loosen this up, and then I'm going to flip it over and flip it onto a plate. So I like to have two plates about the same size. The one on the left is the one that I'm going to be presenting it on. The one on the right is just something I'm going to flip it onto, because I want to flip it onto a plate and I want to flip it back onto that plate, the second plate. So this is where the forgiving part comes in. When you do this, things might fall apart, and that could happen. All you simply do is push it back into place after it's on the plate, and it's going to get covered up with whipped cream and fruit, and no one will know. So let me get back to you in just a minute. Okay, so I'm back, and what you want to do is, well, basically what I did was I had the cake, I put the plate on top of it, I held both the plate and the bottom of this and flipped it over so that this would be on top now. And then I sort of pushed on the middle with one hand, and I sort of gently lifted this up. So I've gotten it to a point where now I can lift it off, and actually that's not too bad. Sometimes I'll have a big chunk, especially in the middle, that might not stick well. So far it doesn't look the best, does it? Actually, in this case, I'm going to leave it on this plate. Sometimes I will flip it back onto the other plate, but that's okay. This has got a little bit of a concave to it, which probably works to our advantage. And I'm going to clean this up a little bit, stick it in the refrigerator to let it chill, and then we'll decorate it. Okay, I'm back again, and I'm going to use some of the raspberry jam that we have, and I'm simply going to put it on top, and I'll probably use a little bit more. You can use as much or as little as you want. I find about half of this jar, which is a big jar, that's probably going to be plenty, but I'm just going to very carefully just sort of spread it along. Parts of your cake are not looking so hot. Don't worry, because we're going to cover it. Okay, so I'll be right back. I'm going to clean off the spoon, and then we're going to put some cream on it, and then I'll finish it off with my fresh raspberries. Okay, so I layered it with a thing of whipped cream, and I'm putting the raspberries on. Typically I like to go around the edge first, but you can really, the top and how you design what you want it to look like on the top, it can be completely free form, and it really depends on how many raspberries you have or strawberries that you have. So it's really up to you. If you don't have a lot, maybe you just want a light sprinkling. So at any rate, that is it, and I hope you have enjoyed this hippening but forgiving flourless chocolate cake with raspberries. I'm back, and here is the final result. So enjoy.